get to haul a load of liquor to Greensboro, Winston-Salem back in the 50s?
You'd probably make $150.
A trip?
Yeah.
One night, $150. Is it not easy to see how these young guys did that?
A truck rolls down a dark road outside Detroit, somewhere around midnight, sometime in the 1920s. The papers on the seat next to the driver don't match what's actually in the back. If anyone stops him and checks the crates, the story falls apart in about 10 seconds. He's rehearsed the lie anyway, the same way he rehearses it every single run, because saying nothing feels worse than saying something. Then he sees headlights behind him, steady, not passing, close enough that it can't be a coincidence anymore. And here's the thing about this exact moment: go to prison or go home with nothing. This wasn't gangster mythology, not for most of the men doing this. For a lot of them, this was just the only haul left that actually paid enough to feed a family, keep a truck, and make it to the next month without losing everything he'd already built. That's the actual story here. Not the famous criminals everyone already knows from the movies and the history books. The ordinary drivers who never once planned on becoming one of them. In January of 1920, the country went dry. Alcohol became illegal all at once by federal law. And almost nobody involved in trucking planned for what came next. Somebody still had to move that liquor from where it was made or smuggled across the border to where people wanted to drink it. That job fell to truck drivers. Not because they were criminals looking for a life of crime, because trucking was already their job, the thing they already knew how to do, and this had suddenly become the highest paying freight available anywhere in the country. Prohibition didn't just create the bootleggers and gangsters most people picture when they hear the word. It quietly turned an entire class of ordinary, working truck drivers into the actual backbone of an illegal supply chain, almost overnight, without any of them signing up for that role on purpose. Some men built empires out of this. A rum runner named Roy Olmsted was reportedly clearing $200,000 a month at his peak, before federal agents finally caught up to him. That's the version of this story most people already know. But underneath men like that were hundreds, maybe thousands of ordinary hired drivers who never came close to that kind of money. Men just trying to cover a truck payment and keep the lights on. And once you understand why they did it, the whole story stops being about outlaws chasing a thrill. It becomes about men doing the math on their own empty gas tank. Here's the part that gets left out of most versions of this story, and it's the part that actually explains everything else. A lot of these drivers didn't own their trucks outright. They were paying them off month by month, the same way a man might pay off a house or a farm. Miss too many payments, and the truck gets taken back by whoever financed it. No truck means no job at all. No job means nothing coming in for him or for the family waiting on him at home. And legal freight in the 1920s didn't always pay enough to stay ahead of that note. A driver could work a full week hauling completely legal freight and still come up short on what the truck payment actually required that month. Then somebody, usually a man he already half trusted, offers him a different kind of run. One night, one load. Pay that sometimes 3 or 4 times what an entire week of ordinary freight would bring in. For a man staring down a truck note he couldn't quite cover, that math didn't feel like some grand moral question. The kind you debate late into the night. It felt immediate, practical, almost boring in how straightforward it was. It felt like the only realistic way to keep the truck he already owned most of the way to owning. And once a man took that first run and got away with it, the second run came easier. Not because the danger had lessened, because the truck note was still sitting there due again next month, exactly the same as before. These runs weren't random or improvised on the spot. They followed patterns, refined over years, by men who'd already been caught or nearly caught enough times to learn precisely what worked and what got a driver killed or arrested. Night was the first and most obvious rule. Almost everything moved after dark, when there were fewer eyes on the road, fewer patrols actually watching, and fewer chances of a curious bystander noticing something worth reporting. The Detroit River became one of the busiest crossing points in the entire country for exactly this kind of work, because Canada sat right on the other side of it, legally producing liquor that instantly became illegal the moment it touched American soil. In winter, when the river froze solid enough to hold weight, Drivers would simply drive their trucks straight across the ice from the Canadian side to the American one. It sounds almost too simple to actually be real, but it worked right up until it didn't. An overloaded truck on river ice was its own kind of disaster waiting to happen. Further out, along the East Coast, there was an entirely different system floating just past American waters. Ships loaded with liquor would anchor together, sometimes a dozen or more at once, in international waters where the Coast Guard couldn't legally touch them. Locals called it Rum Row. Smaller boats would run out to buy cases directly off these ships, then race back toward shore, where trucks were waiting to load up and disappear inland before daylight. Then there was the disguise itself, and bootleggers got creative in ways that still sound almost unbelievable today. Crates marked as ordinary canned fruit, with the alcohol literally floating inside sealed cans that look completely innocent from the outside. Shipments hidden inside pig carcasses, packed and sealed so a casual inspection wouldn't reveal anything unusual. Liquor packed into crates stamped for Bibles, on the theory that no inspector particularly wanted to be the man who cracked open a crate of Bibles specifically looking for whiskey. None of these tricks worked forever. Inspectors eventually learned every one of them, but the tricks didn't need to work forever. They just needed to work often enough, on enough nights, that the math still favored taking the risk over sitting home broke. And here's the part that actually decided who got caught and who got paid, month after month, run after run. It usually wasn't about courage or nerve or how well a man could drive under pressure. It was about information. Which roads had patrols out that particular night? Which inspectors could be quietly paid to look the other way at a checkpoint? Which routes had already been burned by another driver's mistake the week before and were now crawling with extra attention because of it? The drivers who survived this longest weren't the boldest ones behind the wheel. They were the ones plugged into that information the fastest, the ones with a network of other drivers and sometimes even friendly cops, feeding them exactly what they needed to know before they ever pulled out of the yard that night. Here's something worth understanding clearly, because it completely changes how you should picture all of this playing out. Outrunning the law in the 1920s didn't mean what it means today, and it's worth sitting with that difference for a second. There was no radio call going out instantly to every patrol car in the region. No way for one officer spotting a suspicious truck on a dark road to instantly warn the next town over that trouble was heading their way. If a driver managed to get past the one man who'd spotted him, he had a real chance of simply disappearing into the night completely. But when it did go wrong, it went wrong exactly the way you'd picture a chase from this era going wrong. In July of 1924, along a road outside Rochester, New York, a custom officer and his men chased a truck loaded with 1,200 bottles. Gunfire went both directions during that chase. That's what getting caught could actually mean in this era, and it's worth understanding fully before moving on. Some of these chases ended in arrests, some ended with the truck abandoned on the side of the road, the driver disappearing, and some ended with somebody getting hurt. Because getting caught carried a real price, and it was never just a fine you could shrug off and pay next week. Jail time was genuinely on the table for the driver himself specifically, not just for whoever he happened to be working for further up the chain. A conviction could mean months behind bars, sometimes considerably longer. So knowing all of that, understanding the real weight of every single risk involved, why did so many ordinary drivers keep taking these runs anyway, month after month, sometimes year after year? Because the alternative wasn't actually safety, the way it might look from the outside looking in. It was simply a slower, quieter kind of losing. A man hauling nothing but legal freight, falling further and further behind on his truck note every single week, was still going to lose that truck eventually, just without any of the danger attached to how he lost it. And once a driver had run this calculation, the fear that had once felt overwhelming started to feel almost manageable. Not gone, just familiar enough to live with. So picture that driver again, the one from the very beginning of this story. Dark road outside Detroit, papers on the seat that don't match what's sitting in the back of the truck, headlights closing in behind him, holding steady, refusing to pass. He's not a gangster pulled straight out of a movie script. He's a man with a truck payment due at the end of the month, a family waiting for him at home, and a decision that has to happen in the next few seconds entirely alone, with nobody coming to help him, no matter which way this particular night actually goes. That's the real story underneath Prohibition-era trucking, the one that rarely makes it into the popular version of this history. Not the famous names everyone already knows, not the speedboats and organized gangs that dominate the movies and the museum exhibits built around this era. Ordinary men alone on empty roads deep in the night, making a choice that had almost nothing to do with breaking the law, simply for the thrill of breaking it. And once Prohibition finally ended in the early 1930s, this exact isolation these men had lived inside for over a decade didn't just disappear along with it. It simply changed shape into something else entirely.
Today is the first day that lager beer in excess of 0.5% may be legally possessed, transported, or sold.
Because the empty highways stayed just as empty as they'd always been. The night stayed just as dark, mile after mile of American road with nothing but a driver's own headlights cutting through it. And the truckers who came after these men, hauling perfectly legal freight instead of hidden liquor, inherited the exact same basic problem in a different form. Alone on the road. No help close enough to matter if something genuinely went wrong out there. And eventually, for reasons that had nothing to do with breaking any law at all, a reason of their own to start keeping something within easy reach, just in case the night ever turned on them the way it had turned on so many drivers before. That's a story we already covered, and it's on your screen right now. It starts in exactly the same place this one did. A man alone on a road with nobody watching his back but himself. And you might want to see what happened next.